it's working. I think it will be. Let's see if it's working. It is. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglash for the WDMA. We're going to cover the world today. We're going to talk about integrity and some other things like that. And we're going to start with Tom Fishburne. Okay? Nope, this isn't the right article. That's another Tom Fishburne. We'll talk about him too. Social listening and consumer insights. Okay? Everything we do is supported, everything we do as a brand is supported by research and evidence. And the person says, like what? Looking at social media and cherry picking quotes we like. Okay, makes sense. It's a good way to pile up data and get a lot of it in the direction you like. And I think that's a worthy topic for Tom Fishburne. The plural of anecdote, the antidote to anecdote is not data. The old aphorism goes, I think that the inverse is also interesting. The singular of data is not anecdote. Okay, you got to get these things right. Okay. Marcus Collins, head of strategy at Whedon Kennedy, New York, made the following observation a couple of years ago. Though the amount of data available to marketers has increased exponentially over time, our ability to extract insight from said data has only marginally improved. This paradox amounts to a simple yet significant oversight. Simple? It doesn't. I don't think it does. I disagree. We mistake information for intimacy. Well, that's certainly true. You know, I've always said this CRM came out a few years after I invented it. We called it integrated marketing, but the one-to-one folks talked about customer relationship management. And I had two problems with that. One, I don't think customers think of places they buy stuff as a relationship. No. I don't think customers had a relationship with Bud Light. It was beer. You know, and it may be their favorite beer. But as I told you the story about Schlitz when they fiddled with their recipe and made Schlitz beer into a snow globe adventure, it was done. It was gone. Okay? Why? Well, partly because there's a lot of beers that taste alike, and you probably can't tell the difference in a blind taste test. There might even be beers you like better if you tried them. And there's a lot of alternatives, right? There's just a lot of alternatives. And so, you know, to have, it's not like a marriage. You know, there's a lot of alternatives outside of marriage, but there's a lot of reasons not to explore. And maybe you're like that with your brand. But then something happens and there's a reason to explore. Okay? So it's not just information for intimacy. There just isn't intimacy. That's a lie. The other problem with CRM is relationship management. You know, suppose I bring flowers home for my wife and she asks, well, what's the occasion? I said, I'm managing our relationship. I used to say I'd probably eat those or wear them or something, those flowers. But I asked her what she would do if I said that. And she said, I would be shocked, probably offended, although you're an odd person. So I might think it's okay, and I would certainly keep the flowers. So she would appreciate the gesture, okay? But you don't manage your relationship with your wife, you know? You do your best. You do your best to love her with your whole heart. Anyway, social listening is just one way marketers can mistake information for intimacy. We'll go with that because Tom does. Some have argued that the plural of anecdote is actually unstructured data. Right, it's exactly right. But the trouble is that what's the organizing principle of data? It's not revealed by the data. It isn't, right? And for the most part, in marketing, marketers have no goal. They have no definitive dependent variable, if you really want to get into that. the hardcore. Okay, so what do we use as a dependent variable? And here's a clue for you. Okay, what we do is we take the 100,000 or million pieces of mail. We take the customers and we give each one a cost of the mail. Okay, so let's say the mail is $1. Okay, so now each one starts with a negative $1 of profit from that campaign. We know who got mailed. We know how much it cost. We know they engaged with it. We know they decided whether to keep it, throw it out, or buy. Okay, and so that's our starting point. Every customer starts out with minus $1 profit, and then some buy. Okay, and the ones that buy, we take into account the sale, we subtract the cost of goods, we subtract the cost of order processing. Okay, and we end up with a net profit that goes against that minus $1. Okay, that's our dependent variable. We know with precision, you know, or average order size. I mean, the order processing cost is, is an average, so it's not to the penny. But it's a heck of a lot better than almost any other modelers I've ever heard of. That's our dependent variable. And so we then look at the difference between the very, very profitable customers and the unprofitable customers. And we try to figure out which variables make the difference. That's how we do it. Okay? We have a very, very clear dependent variable. No other media has a dependent variable in that clarity. None. Not mass media, not social media, not pay-per-click, nothing. None of them do. Okay? Most of the people that click, they don't know who they are. Most of the people that come to their site, they don't know who they are. Most of them. Even when they match them back, match their IP address and their computer fingerprint and all that, still don't really know who they are. And even if they did, they don't have any real data on them. They don't have their buying history from other catalog companies or your catalog company, for heaven's sakes. Okay, so how do you make sense of it? Well, the answer is you cherry pick. Cherry picking, no matter how tall the data stack, you can always find supporting evidence to justify any decision you want to make. See how that works? Without a clear dependent variable, there's nothing to bounce up against. And even then you'll see, I would say about 80% of the variables that I see come up in those kinds of analysis, and we're using fairly high-powered machine learning, same type of algorithms that Google uses. Even then, I throw away about 80% of the variables that the model thinks is spiffy because I know that they just don't make any sense. If it says that the most important variable in that campaign is the percentage of left-handed snow throwers per capita per zip code, I say no, that's not possible. It doesn't make any sense. That's what's called a spurious correlation. AI is notoriously difficult has a difficult time understanding spurious correlations. So that's why integrity matters, and we'll get to that in a minute. Our own biases, confirmation bias, from selection biases to cause and effect biases, can skew and shape how we look at any kind of research. I've always been amazed at how people misinterpret the most obvious facts when you present them. We did a profile for the Blood Center in Kansas City, and they said, we believe our target for donations is wealthy, rich suburban women, and that was probably true. I said, well, who do you reach out to? And they said, we always reach out to those because those are our board members, and they like to see the ads in their magazines that they like to read. They're high-end real estate magazines. Well, it's a circle. It could be the greatest opportunity is to blue-collar neighborhoods. You don't know, with the right offer, perhaps. Okay, so we ultimately need to read both qualitative and quantitative tea leaves, right? And you have to have a healthy dose of skepticism in the tea leaves. We want to practice evidence-based marketing, but we always have to sense check the evidence. Exactly what I'm saying. And here are a few related marketing cartoons. Now that we've invested in marketing tech What's the ROI? Yeah, great question. That's a good question for a new analytics tool we should buy. Yes, and a new layer for data visualization. Right. Okay. The truth is, all of this doesn't matter because if you have a good dependent variable, you know what you're looking for. It's the difference between data. We used to call it, what do we used to call it? Data mining. And what they would say is there's an awful lot of data here. There must be some value. We do data sluicing. We know exactly how to set it up. We know exactly what we're looking for. And we know if we found it. And that's the way it should work. The marketing dashboard. No idea what this is or what to do with it. Exactly. Vanity metric that has nothing to do with sales. You can correlate anything to anything. And I highly recommend going to spuriousdata.com. Another irrelevant offer, it's like they have no idea where I am in the customer journey. Yeah, and that's true to this day. Okay, so in that light, Bud Light faces further backlash after it turns off a oh yeah, well anyway, Bud Light sales down 26% compared to year over year of outside of restaurant sales. And that's just a little quickie. And here it's a graph showing Bud down 26 and Coors Light, which is pretty much water, up 13.3, and Miller Lite up 13.6, which pretty much adds up to that, or a little better. Some people have also discovered that Bud Light is owned by InBev, which is a global conglomerate that is connected with about 500 different beer labels, and so they may have switched from those to these, which gave them a little extra boost. But these are, I learned so much in this research. I learned that I can't even get into it all, but I'll post all of these things and I'll let you look at it. The real one, this was the most interesting. Washington Post. It got into the ideas, Andrew Van Dam, the historical causes that have fomented the downfall of Bud Light, including the Obama Department of Justice, or whatever it is, antitrust case against InBev, buying Modelo. And now Modelo is the number 2 beer in America after Bud Light, but probably soon to pass it. I didn't know that Mexico is the number 1 exporter of beer in the world, and about 97% of that export goes to the United States. Who knew, right? And most of that changed since the 90s, when Mexico only was 17% of U.S. beer imports. What do you know? All kinds of good stuff. But I want to just get over to a final article. Our agency said if we want to appeal to millennials, our message has to be authentic. There's another one Tom could have used. It's Scheisse. And so I wrote this about 5 years ago. Integrity is a modeling variable. And it talks about how the direct marketing magazines, there aren't any anymore. They've basically all gone away since then. But the marketing magazines or websites are loaded with articles on the benefits of understanding your customers, especially in difficult times. These suggestions get paraded out. Rarely is much detail offered. In fact, I've probably already given you more detail than most any of them, and I look for them all the time. Rarely is much detail offered, especially about how many or what kinds of customer variables are most beneficial. Customer variables. Usually they talk about geodemographic clusters or specific demographics, and some talk about recency, frequency, and monetary. My experience suggests there's only a couple of hundred that matter at all, and they never seem to quite match what you're looking for. You never quite have the right variables. I had a client that sold baseball equipment, which I've mentioned before, and they asked me if they should rent SUV owners since a lot of moms take their kids to baseball. And I tried to explain that while even most baseball moms might own SUVs, they only comprise a small fraction of the total SUV owners. And so there's probably a lot better ways to get at them, like people who are interested in baseball and have kids. But anyway, okay. That's, this is the way it is. And so what I said was, I suggested that there's an infinite number of possible variables about each of your customers, but most of them don't matter a lick. Like, for example, which is per capita per zip code. You can calculate a lot more than you want to, than it matters. Okay? And AI is great at taking all those things, piling them higher and higher and higher, and generating greater spurious correlations. But the variable I'm interested in, I said, is not in the customer database. It's in the modeler. After decades of success, I've run across my share of defeats. Most of them were handed to other modelers. We beat them because we built more variables, we did more models, we did more validations, so I guess we outworked them. But the most important variable missing in most databases is integrity. We conclude what we want to believe. There used to be, when I started in marketing, there used to be this concept that we should market to people like our customers. And we still hear about lookalike models that find our best customers and then identify others that look like them. But for decades now, I've watched the media make almost every father in almost every situation, comedy, and commercial look like an idiot. Since father knows best, they basically have committed to making fathers, if they're even visible at all, look like fools. Okay? Never mind that some decision making was done by those fathers. Looks like I'm running out of space. My recording is going to end. I guess I'll go on. But, and we see mostly people of color in every commercial now. Is that mostly their market? I don't know. But 60% of America is still white. I'm not saying you can put anybody you want in your commercial, and maybe it'll help. But when Bud decided to go after, or to, the VP of marketing kind of said, well, who wouldn't want a spokesperson? A trans woman appeals to men because men like women, and women because women like women. But it was a kind of a disconnect. Is that integrity? Is that speaking the language of our customers? No. And sometimes the customers get mad. I don't think they're particularly mad at anybody who's trans. I'm pretty sure they're not. They're not mad at Mulvaney. They're mad at Bud for talking stupid to him. And then Bud comes out with girls running through the rain, essentially wet T-shirts, and but dark T-shirts, and playing country music. Like, oh, we want you back. We'll do a regular Bud commercial. And there were something like 10 million views on YouTube of this commercial and only 200 likes. So anyway, something to think about. Think about, are you kidding yourself when you're doing your data-driven marketing? Are you kidding yourself? Are you working hard enough at it? Right? Because that's, I'll never forget. I think it was Leo Burnett. The slogan was, "The truth well told." How far have we gone from that? Let's think about the truth sometimes. Let's think about honesty in marketing. Have a great day. Like and share. Your friends will wonder what you're thinking.